Late August 1944, somewhere between Falaise and the German border, the captured GMC CCKW rolled to a stop on a rutted French road, its olive drab paint still bearing the faint outline of the white Allied star beneath hastily applied Wehrmacht markings. Obergefreiter Klaus Richter stepped down from the driver's seat, his hands still trembling slightly from the sensation of the steering wheel. He had driven this American truck for 3 consecutive days across 240 kilometers of war-torn countryside, hauling ammunition, fuel, and supplies for his retreating combat engineer battalion. The truck had not broken down once, not a single mechanical failure, not even a minor issue requiring adjustment. For a German soldier whose entire military experience had taught him to expect frequent mechanical stops, emergency repairs, and the constant attention that German vehicles demanded, this American truck represented something that contradicted everything he thought he understood about military automotive engineering. The mathematics of logistics were being written in front of German eyes, and the equations demonstrated a form of industrial superiority that Germany could never match. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. This was not just a story about a truck. This was proof that modern warfare had become as much about manufacturing philosophy and engineering reliability as battlefield tactics or weapons technology. The American approach to military vehicles would fundamentally reshape German understanding of what industrial capacity actually meant in total war. The crisis for German logistics had been building since the Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944. When Allied forces established their beachhead and began pushing inland, German units found themselves conducting a fighting retreat across France. The rapid American advance following Operation Cobra in late July created unprecedented supply challenges for both sides. But while American supply chains stretched across hundreds of kilometers, German logistics were collapsing under their own systemic inadequacies. The fundamental problem involved vehicles. The German Wehrmacht had entered World War II with over 150 different truck models in military service. Each manufacturer produced vehicles to slightly different specifications. Each model required unique spare parts. Each design demanded mechanics trained in that specific vehicle's maintenance procedures. This fragmentation created continuous logistics nightmares that only worsened as the war progressed, and German industry struggled to maintain production. By August 1944, German motor pools had become graveyards of immobilized vehicles, awaiting parts that would never arrive. Manufacturers had gone out of business or switched production to other war materials. The diversity of vehicles that seemed reasonable in peacetime became catastrophic in sustained warfare. German mechanics could spend hours attempting to repair a truck, only to discover that the necessary component was unavailable anywhere in the entire supply chain. The mathematics were brutally simple. A 1944 German infantry division on the Eastern Front operated with approximately 400 motor vehicles and over 4,600 horses. Yes, horses. The supposedly mechanized Wehrmacht that propaganda portrayed as a modern fighting force remained fundamentally dependent on animal transport that Napoleon would have recognized. The contrast between propaganda imagery and operational reality created a cognitive dissonance that many German soldiers experienced when they encountered American logistics for the first time. American production told a different story entirely. General Motors had produced over 560,000 GMC CCKW trucks between 1941 and 1945. This single model, nicknamed Jimmy or Deuce and a Half by American soldiers, represented standardization at a scale German industry had never achieved. Every truck was identical, every component interchangeable. Any mechanic could service any vehicle, any driver could operate any truck. The designation CCKW came from GMC factory codes. The first C indicated a vehicle designed in 1941. The second C signified a conventional cab configuration. K indicated all-wheel drive capability. W designated tandem rear axles. This seemingly mundane naming convention revealed something profound about American industrial organization. They had systematized even their designation systems, creating a logical framework that extended across their entire production apparatus. The truck that Obergefreiter Richter drove in late August 1944 was a standard CCKW 353, the long wheelbase variant, with a 164-inch spacing between axles. It featured an open cab design with canvas doors and roof, a configuration that became standard by 1942 after earlier closed cab models proved less practical for battlefield conditions. The cargo bed measured 12 feet by 8 feet, capable of carrying 2.5 tons off-road or 5 tons on improved highways. The engine represented everything German engineers had failed to prioritize. The GMC 270 was an overhead valve inline six-cylinder, designed originally for commercial trucks, not military specifications. It produced 91.5 horsepower at 2,750 revolutions per minute. The displacement measured 269.5 cubic inches from a bore of 3 and 25/32 inches and a stroke of 4 inches. This engine had been designed for reliability rather than performance optimization. American automotive engineers understood through decades of commercial truck experience that consistent operation mattered more than impressive specifications. The 270 could maintain the performance across temperature ranges that would cause German engines to overheat or lose power. Its cooling system, though simple in design, proved highly effective. The air filtration system handled desert sand, Russian mud, and European dust without the frequent clogging that plagued German equipment. The transmission told an equally revealing story. The Warner T93 featured 5 forward speeds, with synchronization in gears 2 through 5. This eliminated the need for double clutching during normal operations, making the truck nearly as easy to drive as civilian automobiles. German tankers and truck drivers spent considerable time learning complex double clutching techniques and careful throttle management to avoid damaging their transmissions. The Sherman tank, which German engineers had already tested extensively at Kummersdorf proving grounds, featured similar transmission design philosophy. Americans assumed that ordinary soldiers with basic automotive knowledge would operate these machines. Germans designed their vehicles, assuming highly trained specialists would be available. The transfer case provided high and low gears and engaged the front axle for 6-wheel drive capability when needed. The axles were originally Timken split type, though later production used GM banjo types. The chassis used a ladder frame configuration with 3 driven beam axles, the front on leaf springs, the rear tandem on leaf springs with locating arms. Every component reflected practical engineering decisions made by people who understood manufacturing reality and field maintenance requirements. Richter's Combat Engineer Battalion had captured this particular truck on August 19 during the confused fighting around the Falaise Gap. American units retreating under German pressure had abandoned several vehicles when they ran low on fuel, not because of mechanical failures. The irony was not lost on German soldiers who regularly abandoned their own vehicles due to breakdowns rather than fuel shortages. The battalion commander, Hauptmann Werner Stolz, immediately recognized the truck's potential value. German units in retreat desperately needed reliable transport. The division's motor pool contained perhaps 60 operational vehicles out of an authorized strength of over 300. Horses were dying from exhaustion and inadequate fodder. Supply wagons moved at walking pace, far too slow for a mechanized retreat facing enemy forces advancing with unlimited fuel and ammunition. Stolz ordered Richter, one of the battalion's few remaining experienced drivers, to test the captured truck thoroughly. "Drive it hard," he instructed. "Load it heavily. Operate it continuously without maintenance." Stolz wanted to know whether this American vehicle could be trusted for critical transport missions or whether it would break down at the worst possible moment, like so many German trucks had done. What followed was a 3-day operational test that fundamentally altered German understanding of American industrial capability. Richter began by loading the truck with its rated capacity of 2.5 tons of mixed supplies, primarily ammunition crates and fuel cans. The GMC handled the load without strain. The engine maintained consistent power delivery. The transmission shifted smoothly through all gears. The six-wheel drive system provided traction on damaged roads that would have immobilized German two-wheel drive trucks. He drove continuously for the first 18 hours, covering over 200 kilometers across the deteriorating French road network. The truck absorbed punishment that would have destroyed German civilian vehicles pressed into military service. Bomb craters forced detours. Artillery damage created obstacles. Retreating units clogged roads. The GMC navigated everything without complaint. German trucks required careful management during extended operations. Drivers learned to monitor engine temperatures constantly, watching for signs of overheating. They adjusted driving speeds to match terrain and load conditions. They stopped periodically to check fluid levels and component temperatures. Richter had internalized these habits through months of coaxing temperamental German vehicles across the Russian steppes and French countryside. But the GMC did not require such attention. The engine temperature remained stable. No warning signs appeared. The truck simply worked, hour after hour, absorbing operational demands without the constant mechanical anxiety that characterized German vehicle operations. This was not what Richter expected. This contradicted everything his training and experience had taught him about the inevitable trade-offs between performance and reliability. On the second day, Stolz ordered Richter to increase the load. They packed the cargo bed with 4 tons of supplies, 60% above the truck's rated off-road capacity. German logistics doctrine held that exceeding rated capacity invited mechanical failures. Components would fail under excess stress. But Stolz needed to understand the truck's actual limits, not just its official ratings. The GMC carried 4 tons without noticeable difficulty. The engine delivered adequate power. The transmission handled the additional load. The suspension compressed but maintained control. The brakes, standard 6-wheel drums with hydraulic assist, provided sufficient stopping power. Richter drove another 200 kilometers through the night, navigating by moonlight and the occasional flare from distant artillery exchanges. By the morning of August 22nd, the truck had operated for 46 continuous hours, hauling loads well above its rated capacity. It had not broken down. It had not required maintenance beyond refueling. The only attention Richter had provided was checking tire pressure and fluid levels, standard procedures that revealed no problems requiring intervention. This performance exceeded anything Richter had experienced with German vehicles. The Opel Blitz 3-ton truck, Germany's closest equivalent to the CCKW, required frequent maintenance attention. German drivers expected mechanical issues during extended operations. Supply units maintained repair shops that stayed busy addressing the constant flow of disabled vehicles. The idea of a truck operating continuously for multiple days without mechanical intervention seemed almost impossible. Hauptmann Stolz documented the truck's performance in his daily reports to division headquarters. He noted the continuous operation without failures. He emphasized the truck's capacity to haul loads exceeding rated specifications. He highlighted the simplicity of operation that required minimal driver training. Most significantly, he calculated the logistics advantage this reliability provided. One American truck operating continuously with 95% availability could accomplish the work of 2 German trucks, each operating at 50% availability. But the comparison went deeper than simple availability percentages. The German trucks that did operate required constant maintenance attention, consuming mechanic hours and spare parts that were increasingly unavailable. They required trained drivers familiar with that specific vehicle model's peculiarities. They needed careful operation to avoid breakdowns in combat situations. The GMC required none of this. It operated like a commercial delivery truck, reliable and simple. Any soldier with basic driving skills could operate it effectively. Maintenance demands were minimal. Parts were standardized and, for American forces, abundantly available. The truck represented a completely different philosophy of military vehicle design, one that prioritized operational availability over theoretical performance specifications. The implications extended far beyond a single captured vehicle. If American forces fielded hundreds of thousands of trucks with this reliability, they possessed a logistics advantage that Germany could never overcome through tactical skill or operational excellence. Modern mechanized warfare required sustained supply delivery at scale. The side that could move more supplies more reliably would win, regardless of tactical victories on the battlefield. By late August 1944, this reality was becoming impossible for German commanders to ignore. American truck convoys rolled day and night across France, delivering supplies that kept Allied armies advancing despite extended supply lines. German forces retreating toward the Reich struggled to move their own supplies, constantly hampered by vehicle breakdowns and inadequate transport capacity. The horses that composed 80% of German logistics capability were dying by the hundreds. A draft horse matures in 3 to 4 years. German and occupied territory horse stocks were already depleted. The Wehrmacht used approximately 3 million horses during World War II. 2 million perished. That amounts to 860 horses dying every single day. Each dead horse was one more wagon that could not move supplies. Each immobilized wagon was one more ton of supplies that never reached frontline units. Meanwhile, American factories continued producing standardized vehicles at rates that seemed impossible from a German perspective. General Motors alone produced more military trucks during the war than all German manufacturers combined. And those American trucks worked reliably when they reached combat units, while German vehicles frequently broke down before completing their first operational mission. The GMC CCKW that Richter drove in August 1944 told this entire story through its simple, consistent operation. Every kilometer it traveled without failure was evidence that American industrial maturity exceeded German capabilities by orders of magnitude. Every hour it operated while carrying overloads proved that practical engineering focused on reliability beat theoretical optimization every time. Obergefreiter Richter understood this on some level, though he lacked the technical vocabulary to articulate precisely what made the American truck different. He knew only that driving the GMC felt fundamentally different from driving German vehicles. There was no constant tension, no waiting for something to break, no careful management of temperamental systems. The truck just worked. Hauptmann Stolz understood the implications more clearly. He was an engineer by training, educated before the war at the Technical University in Munich. He recognized that the GMC represented mature automotive engineering applied systematically to military requirements. The Americans had not tried to create some revolutionary new military vehicle. They had simply taken proven commercial truck technology, adapted it for military use, and manufactured it in overwhelming quantities. This approach required industrial infrastructure that Germany lacked. It required manufacturing expertise developed through decades of competitive commercial production. It required resource access that allowed mass production without compromising quality. It required organizational systems that could manage logistics for hundreds of thousands of identical vehicles. Germany possessed none of these advantages, and by August 1944, no amount of tactical skill or operational excellence could compensate for these fundamental industrial deficiencies. On the third day, Stolz made a decision that would ultimately provide German Army Weapons Office with critical intelligence about American automotive superiority. He ordered the GMC truck driven to the nearest functioning rail depot for transport to Germany. This captured vehicle needed to reach technical evaluation centers, where German engineers could conduct systematic analysis. The journey to the rail depot required another 120 kilometers of contradicted, driving through increasingly chaotic retreat conditions. Allied fighter bombers controlled the skies, attacking anything that moved on French roads during daylight hours. Richter drove at night, navigating by moonlight and occasionally using the truck's blackout headlights when absolutely necessary. The GMC continued performing flawlessly. At the rail depot, German transportation officers struggled to load the truck onto a flat car, not because of any mechanical difficulty with the GMC, but because German rail infrastructure was collapsing under Allied bombing and the strain of moving military units eastward. When they finally secured the truck for transport, 3 days passed before a locomotive became available to move the flat car toward Germany. The truck reached German territory in mid-September 1944, passing through Luxembourg and into the Rhineland region that would soon become a major battlefield. Transportation officers directed it to a Wehrmacht vehicle evaluation center near Cologne, where automotive engineers maintained testing facilities for both German and captured Allied equipment. Oberleutnant Dieter Hartmann, a civilian automotive engineer drafted into Wehrmacht technical services, conducted the initial inspection. What he found contradicted his expectations about American manufacturing capability. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The truck showed minimal wear, despite its operational history. The engine maintained proper compression across all cylinders. The transmission shifted smoothly with no signs of gear damage. The axles showed appropriate lubrication and no excessive bearing wear. German propaganda had emphasized American industrial incompetence. The narrative portrayed American workers as undisciplined and American factories as quantity-focused operations that sacrificed quality for production volume. But this captured truck provided physical evidence that American manufacturing quality matched or exceeded German standards while maintaining production volumes that Germany could never approach. Hartmann measured component tolerances with precision instruments. The machining quality exceeded what he expected from mass-produced civilian-designed parts. The standardization meant every component fit precisely, without the hand-fitting that German craftsmen performed on many military vehicles. This was industrial manufacturing at a maturity level that German industry had not achieved. The engineering philosophy behind the GMC contradicted German military vehicle development doctrine. German engineers pursued optimal performance specifications, accepting reliability challenges as necessary trade-offs for superior capability. The GMC pursued reliable operation, accepting adequate rather than optimal performance specifications. In sustained military operations, the American approach proved far more effective. Hartmann documented his findings in technical reports that circulated through Wehrmacht logistics command structures. He noted the herringbone-cut gears in the transmission that distributed stress across multiple teeth simultaneously, providing exceptional durability with minimal precision requirements. German engineers had considered such gears too difficult to mass-produce given their industrial capabilities and workforce training. Americans had been manufacturing them by the thousands. He observed the cooling system design that maintained consistent engine temperatures across varying conditions. German truck engines frequently overheated during sustained operations, requiring careful speed management and periodic cooling stops. The GMC engine operated continuously without temperature problems. The air filtration handled dust and debris that would clog German systems. Most significantly, Hartmann recognized the maintenance philosophy embedded in the truck's design. German military vehicles assumed trained mechanics with specialized tools would perform regular maintenance. The GMC assumed field maintenance by soldiers with basic tools and minimal training. Every component accessible, every system straightforward, nothing requiring specialized knowledge that only factory technicians possessed. The testing continued through October 1944 as Allied armies closed on German borders. Engineers drove the truck through obstacle courses, measured fuel consumption, monitored mechanical wear, and compared its performance against equivalent German vehicles. In every category except maximum speed, the GMC matched or exceeded German truck capabilities. And in the category that mattered most, operational reliability without maintenance intervention, the American truck dominated completely. A comparison test proved particularly revealing. Engineers drove the GMC and an Opel Blitz 3-ton truck, Germany's standard military cargo vehicle, over identical 200-kilometer routes, carrying equivalent 4-ton loads. The Opel required 3 mechanical stops for overheating and transmission adjustment. The GMC completed the route without stopping except for refueling. Both trucks arrived at the destination, but the Opel had consumed 4 additional hours. In sustained military operations, those 4 hours multiplied across hundreds of trucks and thousands of kilometers created the difference between adequate supply delivery and logistics collapse. American units advanced knowing their supplies would arrive. German units advanced, hoping their supplies might arrive if enough trucks completed their missions before breaking down. The captured GMC provided German engineers with undeniable proof of American industrial superiority. But understanding a problem and solving it are fundamentally different challenges. By late 1944, Germany lacked the capacity to retool production around reliability principles, while simultaneously fighting a losing war on multiple fronts. Even if German industry could match American design philosophy, they could not match American resource access, manufacturing scale, or organizational efficiency. The Reich's industrial situation was deteriorating rapidly. Allied strategic bombing targeted oil refineries, reducing fuel availability for both vehicle production and military operations. Labor shortages forced reliance on slave workers who lacked incentive to maintain quality. Critical raw materials became increasingly scarce as Allied advances cut off access to foreign sources. Under these conditions, designing more reliable vehicles meant nothing without capacity to produce them. German military leadership received Hartmann's reports and recognized their implications. The GMC truck represented everything Germany needed but could not produce. Reliable logistics vehicles that operated consistently without excessive maintenance. Standardized designs that simplified spare parts supply. Manufacturing quality that came from mature industrial processes rather than skilled hand-fitting. Production volumes that met military requirements without compromising civilian needs. Some German officers proposed capturing more American trucks to supplement Wehrmacht transport capacity. This had already occurred opportunistically throughout the Western Front campaign. German units routinely pressed captured vehicles into service, marking them with Wehrmacht insignia and operating them until fuel shortages or combat damage disabled them. But captured vehicles provided only temporary relief. They required American spare parts that Germans could not manufacture. They consumed gasoline that Germany could barely provide. Most significantly, they represented capabilities that German industry could not replicate, even if given unlimited resources and time. The GMC was not just a truck, it was the physical manifestation of American industrial maturity that had developed over decades of competitive commercial manufacturing. The Ardennes offensive in December 1944 demonstrated German logistics inadequacy with brutal clarity. German planners designed the operation, assuming their forces would capture American fuel dumps to sustain the advance. This plan acknowledged that German logistics could not support offensive operations through normal supply channels. They had to steal enemy fuel to continue fighting. When American defenses disrupted this plan, German armored formations ran out of fuel within days. The 2nd SS Panzer Division halted after crossing the Ahr River, immobilized by empty fuel tanks within sight of objectives. The 1st SS Panzer Division abandoned dozens of vehicles after exhausting fuel supplies. Their advance ended not through American resistance, but through logistics failure that predictable and unavoidable given German transport inadequacies. German artillery units conducting preparatory fires exhausted ammunition stocks within days. Resupply failed because horse-drawn supply columns could not navigate icy Belgian roads at speeds necessary to keep pace with advancing units. The few motorized supply units Germany retained lacked sufficient fuel to operate effectively, and the trucks they did operate broke down frequently, stranding supply convoys far behind advancing combat units. Meanwhile, American logistics responded to the Bulge crisis with speed that stabilized defensive positions within 48 hours. Despite losing important supply dumps in the initial breakthrough, American forces re-established supply lines faster than German forces could exploit disruption. Artillery units defending key positions fired without restrictions, expending ammunition at rates that would have exhausted German stocks immediately. The Battle of the Bulge proved to be the final demonstration of the logistics differential that shaped the Western Front since Normandy. American forces could sustain unlimited material expenditure. German forces operated on starvation logistics, making sustained operations impossible. Once American logistics began flowing to defensive positions, the outcome was never truly in doubt. That single GMC truck captured in August and tested through the fall of 1944 told this entire story through its mechanical reliability and consistent performance. Every kilometre it drove without failure was evidence that German vehicle design had taken a fundamentally wrong path by prioritizing specifications over reliability. Every test that demonstrated American automotive excellence proved that industrial maturity and practical manufacturing experience mattered more than theoretical performance calculations. The truck remained in Wehrmacht hands until Allied forces recaptured the Cologne area in early 1945. German engineers had documented their findings thoroughly, creating detailed technical reports that survived the war. These reports provided post-war historians and military analysts with invaluable documentation of how German technical experts understood their own inferiority in automotive engineering and industrial logistics. The lessons learned from testing captured American vehicles directly influenced German vehicle design thinking in the post-war Bundeswehr of West Germany. When the Federal Republic began developing the Leopard 1 main battle tank in the 1950s, designers consciously emphasized reliability and maintainability over pure performance specifications. They studied American automotive engineering principles and deliberately applied them to military vehicle development. The resulting Leopard 1 incorporated many design philosophies that had made both the Sherman tank and GMC truck successful: robust powertrain with substantial design margins, easy maintenance requiring minimal specialized tools, standardized components enabling rapid field repairs, growth potential allowing future upgrades without complete redesign. The Leopard 1 became one of the most successful tank designs of the Cold War era, serving with numerous armies and remaining in production for decades. The captured GMC at the evaluation center near Cologne, marked with Wehrmacht crosses and bearing test measurement notations on its body panels, represented far more than enemy equipment brought back for technical examination. It was tangible proof that industrial maturity and sound engineering principles, based on practical experience, mattered more than theoretical technical innovation pursued without regard to manufacturing reality. German vehicle designers pursued advanced specifications because they believed superior technology could overcome material disadvantages and numerical inferiority. They were wrong. American vehicle designers built reliable machines because they understood through hard experience that logistics, maintenance capability, and sustained operational availability determined victory in modern mechanized warfare. They were right, and their approach proved decisive. The reliability gap between American trucks and German vehicles influenced not just tactical logistics, but fundamentally shaped broader understanding of military-industrial capacity and its decisive role in modern conflict. Germany entered World War II with technical advantages in many weapons systems, possessing scientific knowledge and engineering expertise that exceeded most opponents. However, Germany lacked the industrial depth and manufacturing sophistication to maintain those advantages through sustained mass production, while simultaneously fighting enemies on multiple fronts. The United States entered the war with weapons that were often less technically sophisticated, but possessed industrial capacity to manufacture them in overwhelming quantities, while continuously improving quality, reliability, and performance based on combat feedback. This industrial approach, perfectly exemplified by GMC truck design and production, proved far more effective than German technical sophistication applied to small-scale production with inadequate standardization. The United States produced over 2.5 million military trucks during World War II. Canada added another 850,000. Britain contributed more than 500,000. In comparison, Germany produced approximately 350,000 trucks during the entire war. This production disparity existed because American industry had developed automotive manufacturing expertise through decades of competitive commercial production, while German industry remained fragmented across numerous manufacturers with limited standardization. The mathematics were simple and brutally clear when examined objectively. An American truck that reliably reached the battlefield and operated consistently was infinitely more valuable than a German truck that might have better specifications if it could complete its mission without breaking down. A logistics unit with 80% of its vehicles operational could execute missions that a unit with 40% operational vehicles simply could not attempt. Reliability was not a secondary consideration. It was the foundation of operational effectiveness, determining whether military units could execute their assigned missions. German trucks consistently failed this fundamental test throughout the war. American trucks consistently passed it. The captured GMC testing had proven this beyond any reasonable doubt by late 1944, even as German commanders continued deploying vehicles that looked adequate on paper but could not be relied upon to function when needed most. The GMC truck did not defeat Germany through any single battlefield performance. It defeated Germany through industrial superiority, expressed as mechanical reliability, consistent availability, and ease of maintenance. German engineers at the evaluation center understood this by autumn 1944, based on their exhaustive testing. They wrote detailed reports documenting their findings. They tested the evidence repeatedly with scientific rigor. They reached the correct conclusions about American advantages, but understanding a problem and solving it remained fundamentally different challenges. German industry lacked capacity to retool production around reliability principles while fighting a losing war. American industry had built reliability into its civilian automotive sector over decades of commercial competition and simply extended those mature principles to military production with remarkable success. That single captured truck, one of over 500,000 produced, told the entire story through its operation. It carried supplies for German units during the chaotic August retreat. It survived 3 days of continuous hard use without mechanical attention. It traveled hundreds of kilometers to reach Germany. It performed flawlessly during systematic testing, and through all of this, it demonstrated that American automotive engineering represented a level of industrial maturity that German industry had failed to achieve. The truck was unremarkable in many ways, just another standardized vehicle among hundreds of thousands produced. What it represented was devastating to German confidence, proof that Germany had already lost the industrial war even as fighting continued. Evidence that American productive capacity could not be matched, regardless of German technical sophistication or tactical skill. Demonstration that the mathematics of modern warfare favored the side with superior logistics reliability. When Allied forces recaptured the truck in early 1945, they found it still operational, still marked with German insignia, still capable of performing the missions it had been designed for. American mechanics checked it over, replaced worn tires and fluids, and put it back into service, hauling supplies for advancing Allied armies. The truck continued working, as it had been designed to do, as hundreds of thousands of its identical siblings worked across Europe, the Pacific. German soldiers who encountered these endless American truck convoys during the final months of the war understood what they represented. Each convoy was proof of American industrial superiority. Each perfectly maintained vehicle demonstrated logistics capacity that Germany could never match. Each reliable delivery of supplies to frontline units showed that modern warfare had become as much about manufacturing excellence as battlefield courage. The GMC CCKW represented everything that made Allied victory inevitable. Industrial standardization that simplified production and maintenance, mature automotive engineering that prioritized practical reliability, manufacturing capacity that produced hundreds of thousands of identical vehicles, organizational systems that kept those vehicles operating effectively across global theaters. German propagandists might mock American industrial quality, but German soldiers who drove captured trucks or faced endless supply convoys understood the truth. America possessed industrial capacity on a scale Germany could never match. That capacity expressed itself not through revolutionary technology or spectacular innovations, but through practical, reliable vehicles that worked consistently under battlefield conditions. The GMC truck, produced by the hundreds of thousands and operating reliably wherever American forces fought, proved that the unglamorous work of manufacturing excellence won wars as surely as dramatic battlefield victories. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now and don't forget to subscribe.